welcome or welcome back. It's Paula here. March is over. How is that possible? A whole month has gone by and it's gone by so fast. So with the end of a month and the beginning of a new one, I want to pop in and talk a little bit about everything that I read this month. Honestly, it was a very good reading month. I feel like I read double what I read in January or February, so that is great. And I did think I had some very good reads this month, so let's talk a little bit about them. So the first two books that I read in March were continuations of the last book that I read in February. So on the last day of February, I read The Fake Boyfriend Fiasco by Talia Hibbert, and that is the first book out of the Midnight Hit series, I believe. So after that, on March 1st, I read The Princess Trap by Talia Hibbert. I feel like since one of the last books that I finished in February was The Count of Monte Cristo, I just needed some fluffy, cute reads for that first week of March. So The Princess Trap follows Cherry, which is a woman that works in an office. On one day she tries to have a one-night stand with this guy that she meets at the office, and he turns out to be a prince from a somewhat nearby country. And because paparazzi take pictures of them together, this prince makes up that they are engaged to be married and that she's gonna be part of their royal family in his country, so that they had to like act as if they were a couple. So it's a fake engagement situation. Honestly, it was where I needed. It was something fun, it was fluffy, it was cute at times, and also a little bit spicy, which is kind of what I was looking for. There wasn't much depth into it really, and it was quite predictable, but it was very fun to read. So I think I gave that one a 3.5. I read it on my Kindle, so yeah, I think I just read it in like a day. It was a very easy read. And then after that one, I read The Roommate Risk by Talia Hibbert, which is the third one in the Midnight Hit collection. Except I don't think there's like an order, because I looked them up in Goodreads and sometimes it gave me like the order as The Princess Trap, The Roommate Risk, and then The Fake Boyfriend Fiasco, but sometimes it gave it to me as The Fake Boyfriend Fiasco, The Princess Trap, and then The Roommate Risk. So I don't know what the order is. Honestly, it doesn't matter. They don't like align really. So, and I think out of the three, The Roommate Risk is the one that I enjoyed the most. I feel like it had way more depth than the other two, and I personally like the characters in that one more. So yeah, The Roommate Risk follows Jasmine and her best friend Rahul, I think. Basically, they have been friends since college, like best friends, but Rahul has always been in love with her. So it's kind of like a friends to lovers situation, and it's very cute. The reasons why they could not be together at the beginning, and then how they both developed as people throughout the years, and how especially Jasmine got to a point where she was okay being in a relationship. I thought that was very well done. I really liked it. Again, nothing too life-changing, but it was a very fun read with a little bit more of emotional depth than the other two. So I think I gave this one a 3.75, because yeah, it was a little bit better, but it was still like nothing that surprised me at all. I feel like the Brown Sisters series by Talia Hibbert was so much more than what this series was. So I think because of that, I cannot give it anything higher than a 3.75, because I believe there's like quite a big jump between this series and the Brown Sisters, and I love the Brown Sisters so much. Now I think those two are the only books that I read by myself, not filming it, not making a vlog or anything. So the next ones that I'm gonna talk about, I have talked in previous vlogs, so if you want a more in-depth talk about them, those videos are up on my channel already. So after The Roommate Risk, I read Word Slut by Amanda Montel. I really loved this book. I don't rate non-fiction books because I feel like these books are not to be enjoyed necessarily, but to learn something or to understand something. So I feel like there's not really a purpose for me to rate them, because I usually rate based on how something is written and mostly about my enjoyment. And I feel like with nonfiction, since there's such a specific purpose to why they are written, I don't know, I just don't feel like reading them, so I don't. I do think this might be one of my favorite nonfiction books now. I annotated quite a bit of it. I loved it so much. I think it was entertaining but also so informative. I learned so much about how language influences society and how society influences language, and I feel like it's something that honestly would benefit everyone to read. It was very entertaining. Amanda Montel did a great job at explaining these concepts and making them very understandable. This is one that I would definitely recommend. Now, afterwards, I read Yerba by Glum. Yerba is a biography of a comfort lady from the Japanese invasion in South Korea. This can be very triggering for so many reasons, and it made me cry so much because it was just so sad. It was just sad. I just kept sobbing. But the way Glum approached this subject and this woman's story was, I think, very pointed and very beautiful. I think she did a great job with that, especially given that this is a graphic novel. So this is a very visual representation of the story. I thought it was gonna be, okay, worse is not the word because it was very bad, but it was not graphic in any way. There were some scenes that were very shocking and very impactful, but there was nothing that was like incredibly graphic at all. So I really appreciated that. It still broke my heart. It was still horrible to read, but you know, I believe it's something that we should read. It's stories like this that should be shared and should be learned so that they don't happen again, even though unfortunately that's not the reality that we're in, and it will happen again, but it's a whole learn history so we don't commit the same mistakes. I do think more people should read this because I haven't seen it that much online, honestly. I've only seen this at like bookstores. I haven't seen any like Instagram or TikTok or videos about this at all, and I feel like stories like hers are so important to share. And then after Yerba, I got in like a little reading slump. It was just a few days, but I could not read for the life of me because I was so sad. And I thought that maybe picking something that was still non-fiction but actually not emotional at all would do me some good. And I picked Encounter Essays by Milan Kundera. Honestly, it was a read. I don't have a big opinion on this just because I feel like he's obviously from a different generation than me. I don't really know or care what he talks about. The art that he describes or reviews or shares his opinion on, it's art that I've never seen. I've never encountered it, so I just feel like this book was just not for me. I did like some of the essays here, like the ones that talked about exile. I thought that was a very interesting perspective to read from, and also this one essay on 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. That one was also quite interesting. But yeah, I read it. I don't have much to say about it. I just didn't connect with him or his essay at all. Also, the way he did one of these essays and the way he uses sexual violence as example of like how something makes him feel, it was completely uncalled for and unnecessary, and I really did not like that. So there's that too. Now after that book, I read one of my most anticipated reads of this year and what was my favorite book of the whole month, and that is A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. This book was so beautiful. It was beautiful, it was funny, it was romantic, it was magical. There is so much about this book that I loved, and honestly I do see how it might not be some people's cup of tea. It's quite different from 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, but this was just catered for my taste. I don't know, I really don't know how to express how much I love this book. I loved Ricky Wilde. She was great, she was lovely. Ezra was an amazing romantic interest. Tuesday was such a great, like, funny best friend. And then Mrs. Della was such a beautiful old lady with such a beautiful soul. And her relationship with Ricky Wilde, like that grandma-granddaughter type relationship, even though they were not family, was so lovely. So yeah, there were so many aspects of this book that I loved, and that's why I gave it a 5 stars. And it was definitely my favorite book of the month. After A Love Song for Ricky Wilde, I also read En Agosto Nos Vemos by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. This was his last novel that he wrote before passing away, and it was just released this year by his son. I feel like I always read his books knowing that I'm not entirely gonna like them, but I always want to give them a chance because I do like his writing. It's just I feel like I never connect to any of the characters or any of the stories on a deeper level. So En Agosto Nos Vemos follows this woman who takes a little trip every year to go visit her mom's grave on an island that's not where she lives, and every year she ends up having a little encounter with another man, even though she's married. The story, I didn't vibe with it that much. What I did like about it was her character and how it mirrored so much of her mother, and we don't know it until the very end. We just keep seeing how she makes decisions throughout this whole book, and she doesn't really know why, And then we get to the last part, and it's like everything kind of like comes full circle, and we discover something from the mother, and then we just like connect the dots, and it's like, I don't know, I thought it was very fun to see how someone can be so similar to a person that has already left us. I think because of that I gave it a 3.5, mostly because of how that full circle came to be. The story itself was nothing out of the ordinary, and I do think the writing was good, but I always like Gabriel Garcia Marquez's writing, to be fair. So now after that I read An Education in Malice. I read that one on my Kindle. Honestly, I feel like when I first read that book, I gave it a 3.75. I have been debating on whether to change that or not, because I feel like the more I think about it, it was not really a 3.75 star. It was more like a 3.5. I know it doesn't make sense, I'm lowering that rating by such a tiny bit, but it makes sense in my heart. So I think I might stick with a 3.5. So this book followed Carmila and Laura and their very, very unhealthy relationship with their poetry professor. They are both college students, and at some point they do develop romantic relationship. Everything just felt very rushed in that sense. I don't know, I felt like even though that book was marketed as an adult book, and I do see how some parts are definitely adult, it didn't feel like they were adults in the way they talked or thought or just portrayed themselves. I don't know, I just was reading that and it didn't feel like they were adults. I just felt like they were like teenagers in a boarding school. That's how it felt to me. Then when the adult parts came in, it was just very shocking. Because I was like, why are y'all doing this? They're not children. They're not children, but also I hated the professor so much. And I hate that she had such a like, okay ending. Like she just chilled. She like left and just, like she just left to live her life. And that annoyed me so much. Because what do you mean after all this shit that you put everyone in this like college through, you're just gonna be like, I'm just gonna pop off somewhere else. It's like, are you kidding me? And I hated that. I feel like I gave it a higher rating at the beginning because, to be fair, I kept reading it. Like, it was interesting enough for me to keep reading it. And I do think that while Laura and Carmila's like relationship was not the healthiest, I just thought that it was very fun to see how the obsession between Carmila and Laura was so different from the obsession that they had towards the teacher. So it was like they're both unhealthy, but at least one of them makes more sense. And it's not as, you know, predatory. It was weird, but like if you take away the insta-love and kind of like the obsessive start of that relationship, it was very cute. And I did enjoy like their scenes together. I feel like I'm only saying bad things about it. Like it was not really that bad, but I think I might change my rating to a 3.5. The next book was The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland. This book was so much fun. It was so much fun. It definitely fit the vibe that it was promising. It was witchy, there was like a little bit of horror element, there was kind of like a murder mystery going on. So that part was very fun. So this basically follows 3 teenage girls and their pursuit to find someone who has been murdering young women in their city. And it was just very good. It was also queer, which was lovely. We always love, you know, the representation. One thing that I did mention on my previous vlog while I was reading this book is that it feels very intro to feminism. You know, kind of like, do you know those like cardboards are like, she's someone's daughter, she's someone's mother, she's someone's sister, and then she's someone. I think there was like a phrase just like that in this book. So yeah, there is a big commentary on women's issues, and I do think that if I was younger when I read this, I would have loved it more, just because it was probably an introduction to it. I don't see many young adult books that do it in more of like a fantasy setting, because this is not about women, but it is completely about women. So I love that so much. That's why I gave this a 4. It was good. It just didn't make it to the 5-star because sometimes I did have to put a little bit of effort on like keep reading. But yeah, I did like it, and there's like a couple in this book and they were cute. So now after those books that were all anticipated releases, I read some books by Black authors. So the first one that I read was The Principal Moments by Esme Yikiemi Pearson. This book was also very fun. It was definitely a heavy read. There was a lot of world building, different timelines, powers, but also science. So it's like a bit of science fiction and fantasy, Regency romance. There was time travelers and like aliens. It was a whole thing, but honestly I really enjoyed it. I thought the characters were very cool. I thought while the whole thing was confusing, at the end everything made sense. Our questions were being answered throughout the whole book, and by the point that the characters know what the prophecy is, they know who they are, they know what's going on. That's kind of like the point where we also figure out what's going on. So that was very cool. As I said, I like the characters, I like the characters' relationships. I think I gave this one a 4-star. It would have been higher if not for the writing. I do think it's a very specific writing that is just not for me. It's very embellished, it's very descriptive. It lost me a little bit, it was quite confusing. So that's why it's not a 5-star, but I really liked it. The second to last book that I read in March was You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Agweke Messi. Such a wild ride, oh my god. I just felt like no one sane would go through what happened in this book. No one sane would do this stuff. Like, wow. This book is about this woman called Faye. She lost her husband in a very shocking, sudden, violent way. And it's been years since that, and she starts like dating again. She meets a guy, but then she goes with his friend, and then the first guy's friend takes her on a vacation, and then in the vacation she meets someone else, but that someone else, it's someone that she should definitely not fall for, but she does. And then she goes down, and none of this character reacted like a normal sane character. Actually, no, that's a lie. The second guy reacted as any sane person would do. I mean, I do not condone how he reacted, but I do feel like that's pretty much what anyone would do. Like, anyone would get fucking pissed. But then the two other characters, like Faye and the actual love interest, the way they just reacted to people reacting to them was just wild. Because they really like ruined a little bit of their lives to be together. So I feel like I just kept reading this because honestly shit was just going down and I couldn't look away. I couldn't just stop reading. But I really didn't connect or vibe with any of the characters. Faye was funny, but also kind of like girl, what are you doing funny? Like, I would not want to be friends with this person at all. So yeah, it was a clusterfuck, honestly. I finished it because I just wanted to see how it went down, but yeah, nothing that really made me connect with this book, so that's why I gave it a 3.5. The last book that I read or listened to actually was Finding Me by Viola Davis. I had a hold on the library for the audiobook, so I listened to it while I was in the car, while I was at the gym. Also taking Dreamlight Valley because that's my newest obsession, Dreamlight Valley. I feel like the memoirs that I read this month, the memoirs or biographies, they have been so triggering. I did not think it was gonna be this bad. Finding Me has a lot of physical, emotional, sexual abuse. There's a lot going on. It's a very hard read. Again, I don't write non-fiction, so it doesn't have a rating. I do agree that listening to the audiobook rather than reading it was slightly better, or at least I could emotionally connect a little bit more because it was Viola Davis, the one that was narrating it, so she put the voices and everything, and you could see how sometimes her voice was giving up a little bit with something that was more traumatic. I do think it was a good book. I don't have anything bad to say about it, just except that it's very triggering, so please check trigger warnings and then stay clear of it if you are easily triggered. There was a lot going on. I personally cried a lot, and I did connect, well, not connect, but relate to her, especially when she talked about her father's passing. That was especially the hardest part for me because it's actually something that I went through. But yeah, that was horrible. But also good. Like, you know, you cannot expect people's lives to have been easy and all rainbow and sunshines, and the fact that she got to share her story is great, and I think she's a very strong woman for having gone through what she went through. Oh my god, okay, so those were all of the books that I read. I did do a what's on my physical TBR video last week, and I want to have like a little section here to see how many books I knocked out of my TBR. And after this month, I've read 14 out of 63 books in my TBR. I still have 49 left, but hey, we're getting there. So these are all of the books that I read in March. I hope you like this video. I would love to know which books you read this month, so if you want to share, please leave a comment below. Also, please tell me if you read any of these books, what you think about them. I feel like March was a very good month, so I'm very excited for April. Thank you for staying until the end, and if you like this video, please like and subscribe, and if you want, leave a comment. See you in the next video. Bye!